According to federal prosecutors, Richard Moore spent more than $573,000 on his wedding, while his company was failing to send millions in required employment taxes to the IRS.
Now the business looking clean, money coming through. Everybody asking who helped me break through. That tax guru got me thinking big and now.
I'm Tyrone Taylor, enrolled agent, and this is case file 027. 3 Ferraris, 3 Maseratis, and a $573,000 wedding. Now listen to this. 3 Ferraris, 3 Maseratis, 2 BMWs, a Mercedes-Benz, $573,000 spent on a wedding, and more than $1.1 million spent to write, publish, and publicize a book authored by his spouse. But while all that company money was being spent, there was another bill that wasn't being paid, the one to the IRS. And to understand why this became a federal criminal case, you need to understand something about payroll taxes. When you have employees, you normally withhold federal income, Social Security, and Medicare taxes from their paychecks. The employee sees that money come out. But the business has another responsibility. It has to account for and pay required employment taxes over to the government. That money isn't simply extra cash the business gets to use. Keep that in mind, because that's what makes the story important. Now, Richard Moore was an executive vice president and part owner of Nexus Services in Verona, Virginia. According to the Department of Justice, Moore exercised control over the company's business and financial affairs. That included responsibilities for withholding and paying over employment taxes. For numerous quarters between the first quarter of 2015 and the first quarter of 2024, Moore caused Nexus to withhold taxes from employee wages but failed to pay required employment taxes over to the IRS. The company also failed to file required returns. The government calculated the tax losses at approximately $3.1 million. Now here's where this story gets interesting, because prosecutors also looked at how Moore was spending company money. According to the Department of Justice, more than $500,000 went towards luxury automobiles. 3 Ferraris, 3 Maseratis, 2 BMWs, and a Mercedes-Benz. Again, 9 luxury vehicles. Now I need to make an important distinction. The government did not say that a specific dollar amount withheld from employees' paychecks purchased a specific Ferrari. That's not what the business record establishes. What prosecutors did establish was a contrast. Required employment taxes weren't being paid while Moore was spending a substantial amount of company money on himself. And the cars weren't the end of it. In August 2016, Moore got married. According to the DOJ, more than $573,000 was spent on the wedding, more than $500,000. But there's one more expenditure. Prosecutors said Moore spent more than $1.1 million in company money to write, publish, and publicize a book authored by his spouse. Put those 3 categories together. More than $500,000 spent on automobiles. More than $573,000 on a wedding. More than $1.1 million on a book project. That's more than $2.17 million across those 3 categories identified by prosecutors. Meanwhile, required employment taxes were going unpaid. And business owners, this is where I want your attention. Payroll tax problems can start with 3 dangerous words. We'll pay it later. Maybe cash flow gets tight. You've got payroll, rent, vendors, loans, and taxes. So somebody looks at money available and decides they'll use it to get through this month and catch the IRS up next month. But next month comes with another payroll and another tax obligation. Now you're trying to play catch up with last month's taxes while paying this month's bills. Keep doing that and the hole gets deeper. That's why withheld payroll taxes should never be treated like a temporary business line of credit. And this wasn't one missed payment. According to the DOJ, the conduct covered numerous quarters between the first quarter of 2015 and the first quarter of 2024. Eventually, Moore faced federal criminal charges. In January 2025, he pled guilty to 2 counts of failing to account for and pay over trust fund taxes. Then came the sentencing. On November 13, 2025, U.S. District Judge Elizabeth K. Dillon sentenced Moore to 80 months in federal prison, 6 years and 8 months. He also received 3 years of supervised release, and he was ordered to pay $3 million in restitution to the United States. Notice something. I gave you two numbers. Approximately $3.1 million is the tax loss figure. $3 million was the restitution order. They're related, but they're not interchangeable. Now here's my tax guru take. Don't walk away from this story thinking the lesson is don't buy Ferraris when you owe the IRS. That's not the real lesson. Moore wasn't sentenced to federal prison for buying expensive cars. He wasn't sentenced for having an expensive wedding. And he wasn't sentenced because company money was spent on his spouse's book project. He was sentenced for his federal employment tax crime. The spending is what makes the contrast in this case so striking, but the tax lesson is more important. If you own a business with employees, understand what happens when you withhold taxes from their paycheck. The employee has already had that money taken out. Your business then has an obligation to account for and pay required employment taxes over the government. If your company is struggling and you can't keep up with payroll tax obligations, don't keep pushing the problem to the next quarter. Deal with it. Because one missed obligation can become another, and another. And eventually, what started as a cash flow problem can become something much more serious. Richard Moore pled guilty to 2 federal employment tax counts. He was ordered to pay $3 million in restitution and receive 80 months in federal prison. The Ferraris make the headline. The $373,000 wedding makes people stop scrolling. But here's what I want business owners to remember. When you withhold taxes from your employees' checks, that money already has a job. Follow that tax guru if you enjoy learning how the tax system actually works through real federal tax cases, real tax crimes, real court cases, real lessons, that tax guru tax crime file stories.
Now the business looking clean, money coming through. Everybody asking who helped me break through. That tax guru got me thinking bigger now. That tax guru ain't no looking down. From the chaos to the confidence, from surviving to accomplishments. Now the whole team leveling up.